everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the NeedyMeds Brief, Safe Needle Disposal, Sharps Disposal for Businesses and Healthcare Facilities. This brief webinar, which is the final Safe Needle Disposal webinar in a series of 4, will focus on Sharps Disposal for Businesses or Healthcare Facilities. The first 3 in this series can be found on the NeedyMeds YouTube channel, and you can find that on the top right hand of the NeedyMeds homepage. And don't worry, I'll remind you of that at the end of the webinar. My name is Carla, the NeedyMeds Director of Education, and before we get started with today's presentation and before I introduce our panelists, I want to go over a few tips and make sure everyone knows about NeedyMeds and the resources we offer. First of all, please feel free to type any questions you may have into the questions section of your GoToWebinar control panel, but we'll reserve answering questions until the end or follow up with you via email within about a day after the webinar. If we don't get a chance to answer your questions personally during the webinar, again, we'll follow up with you after the webinar within about a day. And of course, we'll provide our contact information at the end should you have any other questions. So let's get started. For those of you that are not familiar with NeedyMeds, here's a shot of our home page, which is really the face of our organization. NeedyMeds is a national nonprofit dedicated to educating and empowering those seeking affordable health care. And when we talk about education, we define that in 2 ways. The first way is to educate people about NeedyMeds and the resources we offer. And the second is to spread the word about other valuable resources, which is what brings us to our webinar and guest today. Safe needle disposal is a public health and safety issue that is commonly overlooked. Our panelist, Leah Zarillis, the Safe Needle Disposal Project Manager, will talk to you today about how businesses and healthcare facilities can handle Sharps disposal. So without further ado, I'm going to pass the screen and the mic to Leah, so bear with us just for a few moments of silence while we make that transition. Thank you.
Thank you, Carla, for having me as your guest today, and thank you to all of you joining us. I hope you'll find this website to be a useful resource and something you can recommend to others. So I'd like to begin briefly by explaining who we are and what we do. So Safe Needle Disposal is an information resource for community-sponsored disposal programs for used Sharps. We also provide information on state and local guidelines. Most states have published their own guidelines and literature on safe Sharps disposal, and our website is safeneedledisposal.org. And we are a resource primarily for consumers with home-generated Sharps. Businesses, pharmacies, and healthcare facilities are regulated by state medical waste disposal laws. The community disposal locations and state guidelines that we list are not for businesses. They need to follow different procedures based on where they are, the type of facility, and in many cases, the amount of and type of medical waste. So we get calls daily from a handful of businesses, not many, but we usually have a few. And even though we are not able to provide disposal services or information for specific facilities, we try to suggest other resources for where you can get information about the laws and regulations for your area and also your type of facility. These resources may also provide listings or referrals for medical waste companies that provide pickup, mailback, and disposal services. In a little while, I will explain where you can find state resources on our website, but first I want to point out which facilities are under regulated medical waste by the states. Okay, so regulated versus unregulated. So simply stated, businesses, healthcare facilities, pharmacies, and home healthcare companies are under regulated medical waste laws. So some examples of businesses would be assisted living facilities, group homes, tattoo parlors. We do get calls every once in a while from those places. Office buildings. A lot of buildings have those wall-mounted sharps containers, like you see in airports too. They're usually, they usually have them in common areas and restrooms as well. That's becoming more and more common. Businesses are putting those in place for their employees. And also nonprofit organizations. So that would include homeless shelters, churches, rehab facilities, places like that. Healthcare facilities, that's pretty straightforward. That would include veterinarians and various outpatient offices, like a physical therapist. Home healthcare companies, this is not always made clear that it's their responsibility to provide sharps disposal for their patients. This is something that I didn't really realize myself until I was researching, various state laws, for individuals. I think a lot of companies, in some cases they're not, aware that they have to pay for disposal services. And in other cases, they know it, but they may unfortunately try it and avoid it to save costs. But by the state and local laws, in most cases, it is considered the responsibility of the company providing the in-home care, and it's not the patient. That is something I wanted to point out. And for unregulated, private homes and patients that self-inject medication at home and they have their own personal containers, they're not under regulated medical waste laws that businesses and healthcare facilities are. So the specific regulations vary. They vary widely. So it's recommended that you contact your state or local agency if you're not really sure how to dispose of your medical waste. It's probably a good place to start, with contacting your state agency. So with that, on our website, we have appropriate departments and subdivisions, and I'll show you where you can look them up on our site to get further information. So just bear with me for a moment while I switch to the live site. So here we are on the home page for safeneedledisposal.org. So from the home page, so if you see the zip code search here and the note underneath it where it says businesses and medical facilities, contact your state waste agency for disposal information. Visit the state waste links page for contact information. So notice that state waste links is a hyperlink. It'll take you to this page that has a map of all 50 states. So when you see the state map, you'll want to find your state on the map. And so for an example, I will select Massachusetts. That's where we're located. And so kind of right at the top of the information page for Massachusetts, there's an overview paragraph here. Don't read that because that's for consumers. That's information for consumers. Um, the State Waste Agency in Massachusetts, it's under the Massachusetts Department of Public Health. So they regulate hazardous and medical waste in the state. And they would have information for businesses. So in the on the state information pages, each one of them does have these gray boxes here, kind of towards the top. You'll want to look for the governing organization name. That's the name of the agency you'll want to contact. We have their phone number and also their website as well. And so this is where they are on the website. So I realize that these listings of the state agencies could be a bit more streamlined. We are in the process of making some improvements to the site, and in the future, the resources for businesses will be more separate from individuals and consumers. But for now, that's how you can find them on the site. And so now I'll go back to the slideshow to talk a little more about the state agencies and additional resources. Just a moment. So for state agencies, like I previously stated, they regulate hazardous and medical waste. So usually the contact departments are the state environmental or health department. They provide information specific to your type of facility. And they may also have listings of medical waste companies and can provide referrals for those types of services. Some other additional resources you can contact for medical waste and sharps disposal. Definitely reach out to your city or county health department. They should also have information for different types of facilities. They may also be able to provide referrals for medical waste companies in the area. Another one to try would be a waste hauler or trash collector. If your facility has a contract with a trash collector for your regular trash, that contractor may even provide medical waste disposal services or know of a company in the area. You could also look into commercial mailback companies. There are many of those online if you look them up on Google under mailback. So that actually is probably a good solution for small amounts of sharps. Probably not so much for the bigger healthcare facilities, but for the small businesses, if it's not going to be something you're going to have to do frequently, that might be something to look into. And two national contractors I wanted to point out. We don't list these on our website or mention them over the phone, but I did want to give you something that you could go directly to if you're not really interested in learning about laws and regulations for your state. You just kind of want to go straight to find somebody to pick up your container. You can definitely give one of these a try. MedPro Disposal. They're primarily for healthcare facilities, but they do also service some types of businesses as well. And Stericycle, they're pretty well known, and they serve all types of industries. And so you can click right on them. They're hyperlinks. Go directly to their site. So kind of in conclusion, sharps disposal varies much more with businesses. There are regulations to follow for safe disposal in order to comply with state and local laws, or else you'll face consequences, which usually include fines. And there are various options for services, depending on the uh, amount of medical waste and the frequency that you'll be needing to dispose of the needles that you have. And it will involve some shopping around, if it's new to you. So you probably will have to spend some time researching and getting quotes. But hopefully you have found these tips and resources to be helpful. That we've helped to point you to where you need to look. So thank you for listening in, and I will turn the mic back over to Carla for a few announcements and closing remarks. Take care.
Thank you so much, Leah, for taking time to explain some of the options and certainly the resources available to businesses and healthcare facilities. As Leah promised, I want to leave you with a few closing remarks. Um, one of them is to let you know to please join us for future upcoming webinars. We do our best to populate the NeedyMeds calendar with both briefs, such as the one you participated in today, and another one coming up on Tuesday, September 12th that will focus on prescription assistance programs. And these briefs are exactly that. They're NeedyMeds webinars that we purposefully keep very brief so we can talk to you specifically about certain NeedyMeds resources. Every month, at least once a month, and sometimes twice, we do overview webinars so you can learn more about NeedyMeds, the resources we have to offer, and how to navigate our website. And we also populate our calendar with diagnosis-focused webinars, such as the one coming up for prostate cancer, as well as timely healthcare topics, such as the one coming up for the Medicare open enrollment. You can register for any of these by going to the NeedyMeds homepage and visiting the calendar on the bottom right hand of the page. As promised, also, there's the contact information. If you have any questions about what Leah discussed, feel free to shoot an email to safeneedledisposal@needymeds.org. Give them a call on their 1-800 number, which is 1-800-643-1643. And I put my colleague Alana's contact information. You'd reach out to her if you're interested in receiving any drug discount cards, brochures, or materials about NeedyMeds. And of course, there's the NeedyMeds toll-free helpline if you are looking for healthcare cost savings options. I also wanted everybody to know, as I mentioned at the beginning, you can find this video as well as the first 3 in the series of the Safe Needle Disposal webinars on the NeedyMeds YouTube channel, which can be found at the top right hand of our home page. You can also find a copy of this PowerPoint presentation right on your GoToWebinar control panel box right now. And should you have any trouble downloading that or have any additional questions, don't hesitate to shoot an email to that safeneedledisposal@needymeds.org. With that, thanks so much for your time and have a great afternoon. Take care.